2023 Executive Committee meeting of the PST Board. Do we have any public comment?
I have not received anything.
All right, thank you. We'll close public comment. And committee members, we have 3 action items for us today. The first one is the approval of the August 9th, 2023 minutes. Do I have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, item 3B, is our CEO evaluation and FY24 compensation. And for that, we have Brad Miller.
So, good morning, everybody. Thank you to the 12 of you, including all of you, that are here today for completing the evaluation and providing good feedback. The recommendation of this committee that will be on the agenda for approval by the full board this month will be to eliminate the separate personnel committee, which has overlap with this executive committee, and just have this annually reviewed by the executive committee. So we've kind of jumped the gun and are already doing that this morning. But the action item is just to receive this, and since there's no change in compensation, that does not have to be part of the decision.
All right.
So.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, so the action would be simply to
Just approve.
just
Receive.
receive and file, or receive.
I guess so.
All right, so I will entertain a motion to receive the CEO evaluation and FY24 compensation.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the FY24 performance scorecard, and for that presentation, we have Trish Collins joining us.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Is this on?
Yeah, the second half isn't the second.
Good morning. I'm here talking with you this morning about my very favorite topic, which is our organization scorecard. We talked about this quite a bit this year. If you'll recall, it was something that we presented at our board workshop a couple of months ago, where we talked about the scorecard being the link between the Sustainable Strategic Plan and the operational decisions that are made on the ground. There we are. So each year we take a look at the Sustainable Strategic Plan, we take a look at our current performance and the priorities that are set in the Sustainable Strategic Plan, and we fine-tune or calibrate our scorecard to continue to push the agency's performance forward and accomplish things that are most important to the agency. So what I wanted to do this morning is just give a brief overview of the scorecard and what we are proposing to change for FY24, and take any comments that you have, and hopefully have something that we all agree on and feel good about moving forward with. So as you'll see, and I will switch back and forth between 2 different slides here, we blew it up large enough to be readable. We have 3 buckets of metrics on the scorecard. One is our healthy communities and workforce. The second is our environmental sustainability set of metrics, and third is economic vitality. And those, of course, come from our Sustainable Strategic Plan. Mostly for consistency, we keep most of the metrics themselves, what we're measuring, we keep those mostly the same from year to year, and those are directly tied to the strategic plan. But we do want to take a look at our performance goals and, again, build from year to year on our performance. So what we're proposing to change this year first is to increase the number of diverse applicants per posting that we are receiving. That is a function of our Healthy Communities and Workforce, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Strategic Plan, where we're going out into the community more and interacting more and partnering more with community organizations to bring in more applicants and more diverse applicants. So we're looking to increase the number that we get per job posting. We are changing a little bit, proposing to change a little bit our collisions per 100,000 miles. So that's the number of overall collisions that we have every quarter. This year, on the FY23 goals, the goal is less than or equal to 4 per quarter. We looked back at our historical performance and we have been quite a bit above that. So what we're proposing here is to set the goal to bring it down in stages. And we looked at our past performance over the last 3 years and saw that our average is 4.8 collisions per quarter. We want to set a more reasonable goal than 4, and we want to set a goal for 4.4. So we are, maybe counterintuitively, we are increasing that goal just a little bit. We are also at the same time putting some goals and plans in place at the operational level to increase training so that we can prevent more collisions and really focus on this goal and bring it down. Once we reach this 4.4, I fully expect we'll set that goal lower again and try to reach that 4 number that we were at. Our environmental sustainability targets, these are set to reduce facility energy consumption, reduce water consumption, increase recycling, and reduce our greenhouse gases. Those targets are set for us in alignment with the American Public Transportation Association's sustainability commitment, which we were a founding signatory member for. They measure performance in levels. There's a bronze, a silver, a gold, and a platinum level. And we are currently at the silver level, and we want to achieve the gold level. And these percentages are what will qualify us for gold. So that's how we've set those. Next, looking at the second half of our scorecard, we measure our budget variance. Of course, we want to be at or below budget by the end of the year and stay on target with that. This metric, passengers per revenue hour, is new. This is replacing the metric that this year measures Sunrunner corridor ridership growth. Now this year we really wanted to focus on whether the Sunrunner is bringing new riders to the corridor, and it overwhelmingly is. With this metric, we propose looking at ridership and ridership growth on a system-wide level. So looking at the entire structure of our system and increasing that ridership. So this would replace that focus here on Sunrunner. Now, of course, we're going to continue to monitor Sunrunner ridership. We'll be reporting that separately as its own metric to the board. But we thought it was important here, listening to some board member concerns through the course of the year, to take a bigger look at our whole system. Our next metric, the Clearwater Transit Center project, these milestones are moving forward with the progress of that project. This year, those milestones are all about the design process. Next year, you'll see that our milestones are related to land closing, the procurement for a construction vendor, and also completion of 100% design. So those milestones are just moving along with that project. This next one is the second brand-new metric on the scorecard. This year, in FY23, we put a new practice into place where we included diversity, equity, and inclusion and sustainability as a part of the scoring metric for every procurement. You've heard our highly motivated procurement director, Al Burns, come and speak with you, and he includes the sustainability and DEI component of pretty much every procurement that he brings to you. That is now standard. It's part of our operating procedures. It is not going away, but we wanted to replace it now with a new goal on the scorecard. This is also being led by Mr. Burns' department to launch and implement a small business enterprise procurement program to really create some goals and a strategy to get more engagement with small businesses in our community. And then finally, operating cost per revenue hour. This is a tried and true metric. It's a barometer of the efficiency of our operations. This is in yellow because we will have quarterly metrics that are set for our operating cost targets. Those will be developed after the accounting books are closed for the end of the year, which will happen in a couple of weeks here. So that yellow is just a little note that there will be metrics here. They won't maybe be exactly these, and they'll be updated in a couple of weeks. So this is, I think, a very strong scorecard for us. It really targets the areas that we are, that the board has agreed are the most important for us in our sustainable strategic plan. And I hope that you will approve this so that we can move forward with it for FY24.
Thank you. Questions?
Great job. Thank you for all your hard work.
I have one question. Why is the first quarter operating cost lower? The others are about the same, but Q1 is...
That is a great question that I'd love to have our CFO weigh in on.
We have less ridership during that period because we go into spring break into the second quarter and a little bit into the third quarter. And then we've got students coming back in the fourth quarter, in colleges and universities, as well as Pinellas County School System. So we usually we just base it off of what we've been seeing as a trend.
Okay. Thank you.
It is interesting how that fluctuates.
Mr. Young.
Thank you very much. Well done. I like it. But with public transit, there's always the conversation or philosophy on, do we need to make sure that we are revenue driven? Do we want the highest ridership on the highest routes and ignore the idea that we're public transit? I know I'm not saying that right. Versus, should we be a public transit for everybody? And where revenue isn't the goal. And I'm not saying revenue isn't important, it absolutely is. But when any measurement of ridership is tied to either revenue or reduced costs, I'm wondering if there isn't also room. I don't want to take anything away because those are important. But for me, the goal should be to increase routes and ridership. Now, if you have that just by itself, then you can just create a route anywhere, and that's not necessarily functional. So it does have to be tied. That's why I like the other revenues. But I would like to see if there's a flavor for it on the executive committee to also just acknowledge ridership and we making progress. Because I think we also need to consider just if that's important, that passengers per revenue hour, which is something that you're saying is coming from the board, how does that tie into the program for veterans that we just approved that had no revenue source? So,
If I may,
yes,
and I
please.
don't mean to cut you off, but this metric will capture it exactly that. Revenue hour, passengers per revenue hour is just counting the passengers that are on the bus during service hours. So it's not connected at all to whether the person has paid. All of those veterans who are riding free are still going to get counted in that metric. Per revenue hour is just a way to distinguish the bus travels empty from PSTA to its starting point of its line those are not revenue hours, and so those hours don't get counted against the calculation. So if it helps to simplify it, you can purely think of that as a ridership metric.
Okay, so it's not revenue per hour, it's the
Correct.
revenue hours.
Correct.
Right,
It's
the
the
buses.
number
Right,
of
okay.
people riding, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a transit, key word. Revenue hour means that the bus is open to customers coming on and paying revenue,
Right.
meaning versus sitting in the garage or just driving to the start of the route, that doesn't count.
I wonder that, it might be that is just a little bit of the calculation that lives in the background as we figure the number. Would it be helpful and maybe more clear to people who are looking at this scorecard, maybe we just call that metric ridership or riders per hour?
But we're looking
All right.
Well,
at, in the operating.
This item was added, as Trish said, to this scorecard first, based on some board member comments that we didn't have a ridership metric. And, you know, we have board members saying that ridership is declining when it's actually not declining. So we settled on this metric of riders per hour, which is a productivity measure. It's not total ridership. You know, we are proposing to have some service changes that will reduce in some ridership reduction. We're implementing a fare on Sunrunner that is going to lead to a ridership reduction. The total number of riders on PSA is going to go down, but the productivity, the number of people on the bus at any one time is going to go up. If we take the funds that we are investing in low ridership routes and move those funds to a higher ridership service, this productivity will go up. That was our thinking.
Right, and I'm fine with, and I'm fine now with the per hour, because that does need to be measured. Because we have to make sure that we're an ongoing concern, even though we're public. But, so I'm fine with it. I think the explanation was good for me. I just didn't want ridership to get lost in the conversation.
Commissioner Flowers?
Thank you. I may have missed it. Did you cover anything about retention?
Oh, yes. So that is a goal that we have in our healthy communities and workforce.
I just couldn't see the verbiage, and my laptop was being worked on, so.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any other questions? Oh, Commissioner Fix Sanders.
Thank you. I don't know if this is the conversation for it, but you tapped into something I was going to bring up during open discussion. But since we're talking about ridership and removing routes, I received this email this morning, and so I'm going to insert it in the conversation and tell me if it is actually addressing some of your questions and our concern for the scorecard, specifically in ridership and also with the visually impaired. I'm trying to find where it was, the 82%. But anyway, I wanted the executive committee to hear this and give me your thoughts about this email that I just received from Ms., I don't know if you know her, Jessica Tomlinson. But what she is talking about, and I'm going back to Commissioner Gow's concern about the revenues, and I'm going to try to paraphrase some of what she is saying. She's basically saying, I proudly serve as the visually impaired residents for Pinellas County as a rehab and technology instructor at Lighthouse of Pinellas. As a resident with low vision, I use the ADA paratransit program known as PSTA Access Mobility on Demand. This allows a great many residents with disabilities to travel to work, school, medical appointments, and other life-sustaining activities. I am concerned about the planned fare increases scheduled for November of 2023. The planned incremental increases appear to encourage riders to utilize only 2 trips per day, since some appear to believe riders are overusing the service. I have clients who are parents who need to accompany their children to school or daycare before going to work. I have had other clients with the confluence of medical conditions who need to visit multiple doctors. Others need to visit the bank and the grocery store on their day off from work. This planned fare increase would be a substantial financial hardship for my clients who are not able to compete in the traditional employment market due to disability of medical conditions and would seriously impair what little independence they currently enjoy. Many of my clients receive supplemental security, SSI, and SSDI and have severe outdated limitations on personal assets and income. I encourage the PSTA Executive Committee to consider the circumstances of residents who are not only unable to drive but are also currently unable to use fixed route bus services. And then she gives us a nice compliment, and I'll read that later. But that is just to kind of interject the scorecard. So when we're looking at decreasing routes, and I hear what you're saying, you know, and I totally agree with Commissioner Gao, revenue, but also service should be a very high priority. It shouldn't only just look at what routes serve the highest numbers, because I don't know if we're taking into account of the visually impaired and the PSTA access, and now we're doing the rate increases. How does all of that going to be ranked and monitored with this particular scorecard? And I'm looking, but since we're providing feedback over it, how would that address this young lady's concern?
Yeah. That makes me think about one of the features of a balanced scorecard is that there are things in a scorecard, traditionally, this is part of how it was designed, that are, I don't want to say in opposition to each other, but you can't have all of one without it impacting another, right? So we have customer satisfaction, high customer satisfaction as a goal for both our fixed route and our paratransit routes. Now, that might be a little bit impacted by some of the decisions that are made that optimize some of the other metrics. The balanced scorecard prioritizes for us not going too far in any one direction. Does that make sense? Because we don't want to make decisions solely on the basis of one consideration, one priority, to the detriment of another. So I do think that this incentivizes us making sure that those customer needs are kept in mind as we make decisions, because they tug and pull at each other.
Right, so the way I receive that is, especially when we look at our parent transit, they already come into a strong disadvantage when it comes down to public transportation.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that there's a way you can actually balance that with someone that can actually walk over 2 other streets to get on another route, or have the financial ability to now pay the extra fees because they do need the special services. So I don't think balance is what I would strive for.
Mm-hmm.
I would strive for service and accommodating those with the greatest need. So the performance goal that you have on here for 82% of the paratransit customer satisfaction, are we going to see a breakdown of what those questions are for this young lady and possibly the clients that she serves to make sure that her concerns are heard? Because I just received this morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going into that, and I'll be glad to share her information if you would like to respond back to her as well.
Yes, that'd be wonderful.
I appreciate that. Okay.
And you'd
Thank
like
you.
to see a copy of the questions that are asked
I would
in
love
that.
to.
Yeah. We'll make sure we get that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, any other questions? Commissioner Dow?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I might have missed it, but on the Clearwater Transit Center, that seems to be a metric that is just checking a box. We've already approved it, so yes, 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 yay, grand opening.
If it was that easy, I hope
In any party we throw, we need to keep the price of that in mind. But the Clearwater, why is that? I don't know. The scorecard should be project oriented. This should be part of whatever goal the scorecard is, as I see it. But maybe it's just an explanation on why that project is there and what purpose does it serve as far as the scorecard is concerned.
Well, it's a great question, and it's one that we have, Trish and I and Abhishek and others, constantly debated. You're totally right. The PSTA scorecard, this whole thing is really designed to be outcome-based. What we really want it to be is not related to actions that I or Trish or anybody takes, but just what happened. You know, what is the result? What is the ridership productivity based on all of our activities, all of the board's decisions, the budget, all these things. However, for the biggest projects that PSA is working on, we have felt it is so powerful to focus the organization on the goals of these big projects that need input from all over the organization, to have them on the scorecard. That we talked about taking it off, and then we just felt like that would be detrimental to the project. To have it on, we had the Sunrunner on here during its life as a project, and now it's replaced with the Coldwater Transit Center just until that is done. So it's not a perfect, outcome-based scorecard, but I think with an organization like PSTA, since we do have big projects from time to time that need focus of the whole organization, it's okay to have one project goal on here out of the, how many are there? 15.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, the sun will rise tomorrow and life will go on if it's in the scorecard. But because I look through the scorecard, I try and incorporate it into every decision that comes before the board, at least. And I would like to see any decision that comes before the board to acknowledge what part of the scorecard that comes from.
Yeah.
So that we know the impact of our decision. And so that's fine. I just think it's odd that somehow I missed it with the Sunrunner, because that's only part of a bigger project. What's the overall goal? Why do we need Sunrunner? Why do we need Clearwater? Because whether that's in the scorecard or not, that transit center is going to happen. And I don't know what value it brings to any decisions we're making. So if it doesn't bring value, then why is it in the scorecard?
We very much believe that once we build the new and improved transit center, the org number 1, fixed route customer satisfaction, will go up.
Well, then maybe that's where it should be. And that's just part of what will make that happen. So that should be the goal, increase that satisfaction. How are you gonna do that? A new transit center. So it's, anyway, I said my piece.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? I see the point there. I do think economic vitality helps it cover everything. What I like about having these larger projects in here, both the SBE and the Clearwater Transit Center project, is that it creates another form of accountability.
Yeah.
And I know that in my work, most everything I do, if I have milestones and if it's in front of me all the time, like I plan to get this done by this time, it helps keep me on track. And so I think when we are looking at this, it gives us the opportunity to ask questions, see if there's something that's in the way, or if something needs to be adjusted or communicated to the board that is keeping us from meeting those goals. This performance scorecard is not, it's for all of us. It's not Brad's performance scorecard. It is PSTA's performance scorecard. Every employee, every board member, everyone. And so I like having these principles on the side, and I like having some detail that includes a couple of big projects that will really help us move forward. So I'm okay with keeping them. I do understand that it's something that's a little different from the other measurements that we're going to take. but overall, I think this is good. If we had any more discussion, or if we don't, I'll entertain a motion to approve the organization scorecard for FY '24.
Move approval with the requested amendments.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for all your work on this.
You're welcome, thank you.
Oh, that's right.
We have one information item, that would be the review of the September board agenda. Brad?
Yeah, thank you. Ross, can you come on, sit next to me here? So we've got, next week, next Wednesday in the morning, we've got the finance and planning committees, and then in the twilight hour of 6 o'clock, we have our first of two public hearings on the fiscal year '24 budget, next Wednesday, September 13th. And then the board meeting for September is on September 27th. So what is shown on the draft agenda is sort of assumptions of what the Finance and Planning Committee will be reviewing at their meeting. I asked Ross Silvers to join me here because at the Planning Committee, at the PSA board's request to have a discussion following our focus of our August board meeting about hearing from other nonprofits and other stakeholders that are active in the community in working with people who are unhoused as to how what they work on, what role they play. So that I asked Ross to kind of give an update on where I first talked to Commissioner Flowers a little bit more because it was her idea, and it's a great idea. And then Ross has been trying to get some of these folks to come and talk to us.
Thanks, Brad. So I'm Ross Silvers, PSTA, the ADA, and Community Relations Officer.
And also maybe
Yeah.
tell what other role you play on the Providers Council.
Yes. So I also am PSTA's representative who is on the board for the Homeless Leadership Alliance. So I share with some of the members here. So I've been doing that now for a couple years now. And we've spoken before to the Providers Council of the HLA. We work with, many of the agencies that serve the homeless through our Transportation Disadvantage, our TD Bus Pass program. Been doing that for many years. And of course now, many of them are using our Flamingo institutional accounts, which is really a lot easier for them to access bus fares that are low cost for their consumers. So anyway, that's just kind of for background. So what we're doing is, I kind of come from the background of the disability community originally, and there's a saying there that's probably in other communities too, and it says, nothing about us without us. And so as I was kind of reviewing Commissioner Flowers' kind of requests and comments about this discussion for planning, I was kind of hearing some of that. Let's make sure that we have the people in the room who are all about serving people who qualify as homeless here, so we can hear from them directly what impact is there going to be upon them and those they serve of having a fair start up on October 1st. So I may have heard it wrong, but that's what I thought I was hearing. So that's basically what we're trying to do. So we have a list, pretty good sized list of all the agencies, all the nonprofits and agencies that we work with getting those TD fares out to them. And we're going to be contacting them. This morning I've been in contact with talking to the HLA leadership. And we're going to have Monica who will come back again for this discussion. And she'll be here as well. And they're helping to identify diverse agencies to make sure that we have good representation to give us those presentations and the information and are present in the room. So just the one thing about present in the room, I hope it's okay, but The HLA really emphasized that, which I've certainly heard myself, these agencies are really understaffed and really overworked. And so if we can allow for those who can't make it in person to participate via Zoom, or even if they can't even do that, to submit comments in advance, I think that would really help increase participation. So essentially the plan kind of for this hour-long piece is and I have a write-up of this I sent over to Brad and Rachel, just so you guys have this as well. But basically for kind of just doing a little bit of introduction like I just did, talking about the background of the agencies just for a minute, and then kind of letting the agencies each speak for themselves, giving them each 5 minutes to present who they are, what services they provide to those who are homeless, where they're providing them, and what their capacity is and is not, and what they're doing to outreach to the community and to those who are homeless, wherever they are in the county, to make those services available to them. So that's really, and then of course, the other piece is what impact that Sunrunner Fair, October 1, is going to have on them and those they serve. And then after that's done from each of those agencies, would then be for the HLA to kind of give a quick little, just a little 5-minute synopsis on here's the big picture, here's the data for where we are with homelessness in Pinellas County and where we're headed. And I'm going to ask them, I hope that they can do it, is to give us something. I know Monica's really big into data. And so I really wanted to ask her to give us some data points that we can work towards trying to collect so that we can be able to, in the future, have a better measure of what's the impact of this public transit service or services we're providing upon the ability of those who can be qualified as homeless, upon accessing the services they need. So that when we're faced with this challenge again, we have the ability to have some better answers ourselves versus just relying upon others. So that's kind of what I had in mind. I didn't know how well that meets everyone's needs. What do you all think?
Commissioner Flowers?
Well, that's kind of what I asked for, but kind of not what I asked for,
Okay.
and what I said to Brad.
Okay.
It wasn't for them to come introduce themselves and tell us what they do. I think many of us already know that.
Mhm.
It was for us to come to the table to talk about the concern of persons sleeping on the beach, and what could we do, or what type of ideas could we come up with to try to communicate with those individuals and provide alternatives for them. It wasn't, to go through introductions and all of that stuff. That's taking up time. Some people may want that. That's not what I was asking for.
Okay.
I was asking for us to get to the meat of the matter and to have those organizations in the room who work with that specific population, the unhoused and the homeless, because we also know it includes families, but the concern wasn't wrapped around families. The concern was wrapped around individuals doing things that, no matter if you're homeless or not, it's inappropriate to do. How could we devise a plan to be able to communicate with those individuals and provide alternatives, knowing that there are some who, if you're going to Safe Harbor, there are rules. They don't want to follow those rules, so of course that's, we can offer that to them, but that may not be the direction. It could be reconnecting them with family. Maybe they don't have the means by which to do that, or whatever. I don't know. And Brad said that when he and I spoke, he said that Monica said she had a couple of ideas about how to address this concern, and he gave one other person's name. So if we only have an hour going around doing introductions in the room, that's going to take up the hour, a majority of the hour. My request was simply for us to come together and talk about how we could address the issue. And the issue was, and I'm not even looking at the bus fares, those were going to increase in November. So whether we increase them October, November, organizations would need to determine or try to figure out, what they were going to do or how they were going to move. October 1 typically starts everybody's fiscal year. So it wasn't, something prior to. It was to really get to the meat of the matter. We have people that are riding the bus. It's hot. They're looking for places to cool off. They're looking for other places to go, and it provided another avenue. I would rather come up with some type of action where we could devise a plan versus having them go out there and be arrested, because that's not really a plan. And that's essentially what the sheriff will do. If they're out there and they're caught stealing or bathing naked on the beach, you know, in the showers or whatever, they're gonna be arrested. And that still does not help or solve what's going on with them, because if they continue to do it, they'll continue to be arrested, and it's just a bad revolving door. Versus maybe someone has some mental health issues, how can we connect them with PIMS? I've met with Barbara Dare and her group and what they're doing, so I was gonna share some of that, but it wasn't necessarily for them to give a presentation about who they are and then, you know, have a 5-minute roll-up after that. That wasn't what I was asking for, and I can't speak for everybody, but for me, that would not be the best use of our time. I also think that having them come on through Zoom is fine, because you're right, we have a lot of small organizations that do great work, but they can't afford to be away from their building, you know, for, say, an hour and a half, because they gotta drive up and drive back. So I don't have a problem, just speaking for me, with them maybe attending through Zoom, and if they don't wanna attend through Zoom, but they wanna send in their ideas or whatever, that's fine. If the executive director can't come, but they can send someone who represents their organization. I mean, I would prefer someone who has some decision-making authority, because you could probably get more things done. But I understand if they can't because of what's going on for the day.
Thank you.
So
Thank
that's what I said out there. That's what I said to Brad, and that's where I think the best use of our time with the partners or organizations in the room will do.
Thank you. And is this going to be taking place in the planning committee?
Yes.
Correct.
Any other questions?
And of course, any board member.
Commissioner Fix-Eaters?
Thank you. Mine isn't a question. I know my comment or my concern was not to have organizations come to introduce themselves. My concern was sitting on HLA and understanding the financial and staffing constraints. A lot of these, organizations that work with our homeless are already facing. My question was, what would be the impact and what they needed to provide and help us strategically provide that service for that. Now, I also wanted us to get away from a targeted audience of just saying St. Pete Beach. The bigger picture I thought was, if we're gonna charge a fare, we're gonna charge the same fare for everybody, whether it's going from St. Pete Beach down to Venoy, downtown St. Pete. But the social services aspect of it was, now that we're going to, and is it October 1st or November 1st? I've heard October 1st twice.
October 1st.
Okay.
You voted for October 1st.
So it was October
last
1st,
meeting.
okay, because I still had November 1st in the brain. But how would we need to help those social service agencies assist those that will be impacted the most by the fee, the rate increase, by us now implementing a fee? That's what my concern was and asked for, not the introductions. And I also agree with the Zoom. But I just wanted a way that we can, I mean, for the city of St. Petersburg, I know that, we read the mayor's letter. They were wanting to assist us with providing the services after that date. What does that now look like? So hopefully they're one of the voices at the table as to what that may look like now going forward. So I think, I don't need the fluff and the introductions. We just need to say, this is what we have, this is where we're going, now what? And that was my concern the day of the meeting. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much for that
Thank you.
information.
Great.
And
Thanks.
for the preview.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
that's
Silva.
helpful feedback.
Appreciate you.
All right, do we have any other business for today?
No other business, but I do want to give a compliment that I shared earlier from this young lady. Because we always have to deal with issues. I think it's good for us to hear some good news every now and then. She said, I wish to commend the PSTA Executive Committee for extending the TD Tampa Bay service to paratransit customers so that we may travel to Hillsborough and Pasco counties with a fare of $6. This has afforded me the opportunity to extend career training seminars and other opportunities that would not have otherwise been possible. I encourage the committee to continue this program. Many of my clients can now receive treatments from specialized doctors in these counties. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I greatly appreciate your willingness to emphasize with my clients, even if our desired outcomes isn't possible at all times. So I just say that to want to share that we're doing great things. And I'm proud to be a part of the PSTA board. I'm proud of the fact that we do listen. I'm proud of the fact that we do try to act on the best interests of others, but not always by the masses, but by the service that we offer. So I just thought that I would just share that
Thanks
with
for
you. So
sharing.
congratulations to
Nice.
everybody.
It needs to be framed and hung up somewhere.
Should, or we should definitely get a copy of that because it's
I was-
one of the
I
items
can
on our
forward it to you right now.
legislative agenda because the state's proposing to cut that.
Let me
funding
forward.
for that.
Yeah, but this
Program
is a young
that
lady
we
that
use.
I want you to respond to, so I don't know who to send this to, but I'm just gonna forward it to you, Brad, and
Thank you.
All right, any other business for today? All right, thanks, everyone, we're adjourned.
Thank you.